Hello, and greetings from Budapest! I'm in Hungary visiting Spencer, my mate from undergrad. I know you can tell it's Budapest in this room. You may be able to tell it's Budapest because there will be much more noise in the background since we're on a street, and Budapest is a wee bit louder than Edinburgh, generally speaking. Anyway, but Spencer's off taking the GRE and one of his final classes for the semester, so here comes the ramblings! Here comes ramblings, right down rambling lane. Sorry. Happy December. The Christmas tunes have started. Anyway, I thought today we'd go ahead and finish up Latin week, unless you have any other phrases you want me to ramble about. Heaven knows there are enough to keep going forever. But term one of my year at Edinburgh Law School has wrapped up, and I think I've kind of processed enough to give mini snapshots of what I've learned, so I thought we could do a mini-series on international environmental law, term one, international and European human rights law, term one, and interstate conflict and humanitarian law, which was only one term, so all of that, of course. Anyway, so hopefully we'll ramble through those a little bit as we approach the holidays. But for today, I thought we'd finish up with de jure versus de facto, 2 for the price of 1 on Latin week. Probably many of you have heard of these, but I thought I would explain the Latin meaning and then talk a little bit about why they're interesting in international law as a whole, not necessarily as phrases, but as concepts. So de facto, from the Latin concerning fact, often juxtaposed with de jure from the Latin concerning law. So you can do a kind of fact versus law, what's actually going down versus what's institutionalized or what's on paper. Oftentimes these are not the same thing. Whether or not something that is de facto but not de jure is illegal, not necessarily. So there can be a general practice, custom, some situation, right, that is existing in fact, that the law, doesn't make illegal, but also doesn't require to be in existence, right? So I am de facto sitting on this mattress. The law does not say that I need to be sitting on this mattress. That's fine. But sometimes they are in conflict. I'm trying to think of, like, a concrete example. So, de jure, men and women are equal under the law, right? The United States and elsewhere, and many elsewheres. De facto, that is not true in pay rates, life expectancies, treatment in society, blah, blah, blah. Same thing with a lot of other things, not always having to do with racism, sexism, equality, blah, 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 but just regular little everyday experiences. The law and the facts do not always match up. De facto versus de jure, though, is funny in international law, and I haven't quite heard it put in these terms, so this is just me kind of rambling, and who knows what a legal scholar would say this and be like, that. You never really use that phrase, but it's a Latin phrase, and just translating literally. What is de facto between states may become de jure, because in fact, customary international and state practice is a source of international law. So what states do can become, sorry, my computer just died, which means some of my light went away. There we go. What states do, if they do it because they think that they're, kind of legally required to, can in fact become law in and of itself. So you have kind of this de facto situation of states all acting in similar ways because they think they're supposed to legally, becomes de jure, becomes legal, regardless of whether or not it actually was. This doesn't mean that everything states do becomes law, right? A lot of countries roll out a red carpet when when foreign dignitaries come along or whatever. That is not a legal requirement, nor do states do that because they think it's legal, right? That's like a cultural respect kind of thing. So that de facto situation is not going to become de jure. However, if a new weapon came into existence and states had a hold of it, and no one used it because they thought that legally they probably shouldn't, that in fact could become de jure. That could become actual legal practice, and a court could rule against another state if they broke that off, if all of these states have been constraining their behavior, thinking it was a legal requirement. So de facto and de jure are often juxtaposed, often put in verses, but they do in fact have a give and take. in the law as well. And that's Latin week.